So I want to talk about Heavy Rain and just how bad of a game it is. It's something that I had nostalgia for. I hadn't played the game I think the game came out in 2011. I probably haven't played it since about 2014, 13, something like that. And I was an actual child when playing the game. Now I'm going to assume that you know the story and everything. If not, I will leave a link in the description of a video that basically just explains the story, goes through it. So if you either A, haven't played the game, B, haven't watched someone play the game or haven't just watched the game on YouTube, or C, haven't done both, then there'll be something in the description. I don't want to, not that there's any disrespect to anyone that does this, but I don't want to really go through it, the story, beat by beat. I'll say the negatives, positives, all my opinions on the story, but I'm not going to go through it in the exact order. In fact, the first thing I want to talk about is right at the end of the game. So yeah, if you don't know about the story and you want to learn about it, I would suggest either playing the game yourself, and if you can't do that, then just click the description. But starting off, I want to talk about how this game had so much potential, but it just couldn't. And by potential, I know that you could use that term for anything. You could say this game had potential, this game had potential, and any game in the right hands could be good. You could have a game that's just about trying to wee into a toilet, and I'm sure some company like Rockstar or something could actually make that quite good. You know, like anything could be good in the right hands. Most things, at least. Sure. However, this game, it has a cool premise. The origami killer, the distraught father trying to save it, all the four characters you play as, the journalist, the private detective, the FBI agent. The FBI agent's trying to prove the innocence of this guy and trying to prove this. You know, it's really, really cool. And even the origami killer, who I'll get into the reveal in a minute, even the origami killer is a really, really cool, has a really, really cool motive for the killings. He's not just a random killer. I saw his brother die, and his dad wouldn't save his brother, so he's looking for a father who can protect his boys. So he kidnaps boys between the ages, I think it's of 10 and 13 or 9 and 13, something like that. And he basically wants to find a father who can save their son, something that his father couldn't do to his brother, his son. Does that make sense? So there's actually a motive there. It's not just killing for the sake of killing. However, when all these cool story elements get put together, they just come across as very half-arsed, very poorly put together. It's a great, how would I say this, exterior with a good interior? Is that a way I could put it? In terms of, if I was to tell you the plot line of the game, it would interest a lot of people. As soon as they play the game, they'd realise, actually, this is crap. Like, it's something, if somebody was to come up to me and tell me about the game's story, what happens, yada yada, I'd be like, oh, you know what, that sounds rather interesting. The killer actually has a motive, and the distraught father, and the way the prologue shows someone, you know, and all these little, you know, the journalist who was trying to write a story on Ethan, but now actually, you know, and then the FBI agent trying to, you know, I'm rambling too much. Basically what I'm trying to say is, if someone told it to me, the story just like that, I'd actually be really interested. I'd be like, oh, okay, that sounds like something I might be interested in. But then just in practice, it just comes across as really, really poorly put together, and honestly, just pathetic at times. And in a game like this, so other games I'd put in this category are like Telltale games, not just the Walking Dead ones, but also The Wolf Among Us. This game, Detroit Become Human, Beyond Two Souls, I believe, would be one. And then like supermassive games, like I recently did a video on Until Dawn, but Until Dawn, The Quarry, the Dark Pictures anthology, those sorts of games, like I would all put in the same category as like interactive stories with some quick timey events, like those sort of things. If these do not have good stories, it almost ruins the game outright, because the main game, it's almost like, not quite the exact same, I will admit, but for me it's similar to if a visual novel had bad like dialogue, well not necessarily dialogue, although some can be voiced, but bad, well, a bad story I guess, but bad text, you know, because it's a text-based thing. Sometimes there will be visual pictures and stuff, in fact a lot of the times there will be, but you know, if I played a visual novel and the story, the text I was reading was boring and I didn't particularly like it, then the game's going to be really bad as a result. It's hard to make a game like this have such a poor story, and then you know, if Red Dead Redemption 2 had a bad story, which it doesn't, other things like graphics, like how the world feels, the design of the world, how alive it is, side characters, like stuff like that. And there's the gameplay. I completely forgot probably the main part of the gameplay. It could all make it not a bad game. You know, the story isn't the only sole. Does that make sense? And then you've obviously got the online aspect, yada yada yada. With this game, it is solely the story that it relies on. The gameplay isn't meant to be amazing, I don't believe so at least. There's no side missions, obviously, it's just a full story you follow, so really, and then the visuals are fine in this game. They're not amazing for the time, they're not terrible, but throughout the game you control the detective, Scott Shelby, who's meant to be the origami killer, and sometimes when he's on his own talking, you can hear his dialogue when he's on his own. Sometimes, well, all the time you can hear his thoughts, and he'll be like, oh, we need to find that gosh darn origami killer and all this sort of stuff, because he's a private detective, or private investigator, sorry, not a detective. I believe that's the term they use for him, but he's a private investigator, and he's trying to find the origami killer. I'm doing quotes that you can't see. And at the end it's revealed that, oh, he's the origami killer, but that doesn't make any sense. We can hear his thoughts during the game, we can hear him speak on his own when there's no one around, and you're telling me when he's on his own, he sits there and goes, oh, I can't wait to find the origami killer, we need to find him, whatever. Like, it makes no sense. There's also a scene in the game in which you stumble, as Scott Shelby, stumble upon a corpse of who's meant to be like an old friend you haven't seen. I think it says 10 years in the game, but an old friend. And then he goes and he goes and looks for something. I think it's a typewriter, and he goes and looks for it. And then your character, Scott Shelby, goes, oh, he's been gone a while, let me go check up on him. And then you go check up on him, turns out he's dead, right?
The killer's name might be in Manfred's papers. Been a while since Manfred went into his office. I should take a look.
Hello?
Manfred!
Hello? Your call is logged, sir. A police car will be there in a few minutes. I need to know who you are, sir. Sir? Hello?
Oh my God! He's dead. Oh, God. Poor old man. He didn't deserve to go like that.
But then it's revealed, when we're revealed to be, well, Scott Shelby, one of the 4 playable characters, is revealed to be the origami killer. It's revealed that actually he killed the old man. However, that doesn't make it, like the game didn't show us. We were controlling him at that time, but it didn't show, like there was no reason to suspect Shelby as being the origami killer. But it doesn't mean the reveal's good. It is the perfect example, absolute perfect example of how just because something's unexpected doesn't make it good. The absolute perfect example. This should be, you know, that 101, right? It's just so unbelievably. If they through the story, there's suspicions that Ethan might be the origami killer. And yeah, I knew, because this wasn't the first time playing the game, I knew he wasn't. I knew it was Shelby. However, although to be fair, whilst playing the game, I was kind of like in two minds about it. I was like, wait, maybe my memory's wrong, because there's no way this Shelby can be the killer. It doesn't make any sense. Turns out my memory didn't hate me, and he was the killer. But anyway, I digress. But there is a part of the game, a big chunk of the game, where people are suspecting Ethan Mars, the father of the missing child, the main focus of the game, of being the origami killer, one of the other 4 main playable characters, actually probably the main character of the game. And I would have actually preferred if it turned out he was the origami killer, and he had like episodes of like psychosis or whatever the hell, I don't know, that made him not remember. Like stuff like, I would have actually, as bad as I feel like that still would have been, I would have greatly preferred that over this abysmal reveal that made absolutely no sense. I absolutely hate it. And then they tried to switch around with like, at one point there's a character that you're interviewing as Scott Shelby that admits to be the origami killer. But then it doesn't make sense. Like, why is Scott Shelby going around trying to interview people of the origami killer? My guess was he's trying to collect. Like, I think they show it that he burns all the evidence. So what he's doing is the reason he's investigating his own crimes is because he's trying to get evidence to burn it so they can't trace him to the crime, I guess, which is stupid. But it doesn't sound as bad if it was just handled better. Like, there's no reason somebody should suspect him, and for good reason, because, you know, in my little headcanon, he's actually not the origami killer, and he was just pretending to be, because it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It's really bad storytelling. It was actually pulled out of the arse. It would be like, what would be a good example? If Red Dead Redemption 3 came out, and Arthur Morgan's actually alive, and he was the one that did something, like, and he fought in World War One or something. I don't fucking know. Like, it was just pulled out of their ass, right? That is a really big over exaggeration. I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm definitely going on a tangent here, but it just is such a bad plot twist. If you even want to call it, like, it's just so. I mean, I guess it technically is a plot twist, but it's just so unbelievably bad. It's not funny. There is also some missions, however, in this game that I really do like. Well, I can think of two off the top of my head. One's the mission where Ethan has to chop off his finger. I ended up chopping off his finger, but you can actually just decline it. But that's a mission that I really liked. There's nothing really deep to say about it, so it's going to be very brief, this. However, I did like the mission. You'd have to play it yourself to really understand it. There was a certain camera angle I really liked as well before you entered the door. But I just thought the mission overall, it wasn't particularly long, but, you know, you had to get a bunch of stuff. Anyway, you'll be seeing gameplay of it now, but basically this mission I liked. It's really hard to explain why I liked it. You'd have to play the game, I think, but I thought it was quite good. And then the mission, I'm pretty sure it was either directly after, or it was very soon after at the very least, but it's set just as Ethan cuts off his finger. I believe he must be having, like, shock or blood loss or both, or maybe he's just anxious, or I don't know what it is, but he's in a really, really bad way, right? He's just chopped off a finger, for gosh darn sake. And that was a really weird choice of words. But you play as the female character. I still can't remember. She's the only character I can't remember the name of, and I literally finished the game yesterday as I'm recording this audio. But she helps him get, like, escape from the cops, and they're currently banging down the door, and it's quite an intense scene, and I believe you can actually get caught in this scene. However, I obviously didn't, and it's not difficult to not get caught. However, it's a pretty good scene, and I kind of like it, and it's interesting. There's also a mission in which you have to drive the wrong way down a highway to get some clues from the killer who's, like, toying with Ethan. And I liked that mission as well. I thought that was kind of cool. That was a lot earlier on than the other two I mentioned, but I like that one as well. However, it is a bit silly. There's, like, a police roadblock on the road, and you thought you drive off the road, but how the police have set up a roadblock that fast, I have no idea. However, it is a kind of cool mission overall. I didn't mind it. There is a bunch of endings to this game. I think, is it 14 or 17? However, I did a I'm stuttering on my word. You can tell I don't script. I did a full mini watch party. I don't know how long the video was. It was actually, I think it was over an hour, of just all the endings, all the complete endings you can get on Heavy Rain, and a few of them I did skim over because they were very, very similar, if not the exact same, pretty much. However, there are a few endings that are pretty different. They all end up in the same place. I mean, which makes sense because that's where Sean has been captured to, which is the kid that you're trying to find throughout the game. However, there's a lot of the endings are, like, almost similar to Until Dawn's ending, where it's like they're pretty much the same thing, just one character's dead this time, and, you know, that sort of thing. Like it's not as varied as online. It says, like, 7. Is it 14 or 17? I've got 17 in my head, but it might be 14. I don't know. But there's probably actually about, like, 4 or 5 proper endings that are actually different enough to warrant being called a full-on different ending, you know, and then the rest are just very similar, slight deviations here and there, because of actions you did previous in the story, and then maybe, like, this character's alive, this character's alive, yada yada yada. Although it does have a lot more differences than Until Dawn. Until Dawn wasn't the best example, but it's a similar sort of game, so I thought I'd mention that as an example. However, I thought there was enough endings, which is fine. Some of them, to be fair, there wasn't a single ending I absolutely despised. Every single ending, even the one I got, was alright. One thing I will mention, however, is when I played it, the final scene, Jaden, who's the FBI agent, he died, and There's a cutscene at the end where like the police officer Blake, who's like kind of his rival, not really, it's hard to explain if you don't know. Like I said, you'd have to know the story. I suggest watching the thing in the description or playing it yourself, yada yada yada, if you don't know. But he's kind of like his rival, and kind of, not really, but it's the best way I can describe it if I'm trying to do it very briefly. But they're basically against each other, right? Blake is an officer, Jaden's the FBI agent you play as, and he died for me, overexposure of like his glasses. It's hard to explain anyway, but he died. And then the police officer Blake puts on the glasses in like the post-credit scene, it's just like the ending scene. He puts on the glasses, and then Jaden's there as like a ghost in the AR world or VR world or whatever. It's just so... Like it doesn't make sense. Maybe there is a way it makes sense that someone can explain to me, but like how did he become a... Like he died, for me he died with the headset on his head, but like is it like Five Nights at Freddy's? Are people getting zapped into like is it William Afton? Like I don't quite understand. It just made no sense. It did not fit the game at all. Just let Jaden rest in peace. Like, it's such a stupid ending. It's honestly the most stupid part of the entire game for me. Like, it's I don't think it is overall. I feel like, but I think it's because it's right at the end as well. It's a great. It summarises very well how bad the story is. Just this one scene. I could show this one scene, explain to you why the scenes happened, yada yada yada, and it would summarise the entire story. Is just like that. If you want to explain Heavy Rain, just show them this scene, because my gosh, it is so stupid. It is unbelievable. I think one thing that makes this game so unbelievably bad story-wise as well, although it's definitely not the only reason, is the script and the voice acting. You get a lot of games where the voice acting is good, the script is bad, the script is good, the voice acting's bad, or they're both really good. However, this is the opposite of that. Both of them are absolutely terrible. The script is really, really, really bad. I mean, I can show you, actually, I'll show you this one scene, which shows you just how bad together, and this is the entire game, this isn't just a one-off. This is the entire game, that shows you how bad both the script are, and the voice acting at the exact same time.
Okay.
My baby. My baby needs me.
Right. You stay there. I'll take care of the baby. Okay?
Do you know what to do? With a baby, I mean.
I'm a private eye. There's nothing I can't do.
I came here to find a killer. And that is exactly what I'm gonna do. With or without your help.
Fucking asshole!
That's enough!
There's very few characters in this game that actually have voice acting. I think it's okay. I think the female characters is alright. Scott Shelby's is alright. There's a few side characters you speak to very briefly which are okay. But the vast majority of the voice actors either sound like 15-year-olds pretending to be detectives, or just that, really. I mean, they just don't sound very good. I'm not saying these voice actors, I don't know who the voice actors are, I haven't looked them up. I don't know what their other work is. I don't know if they're good in other mediums, or mediums, I guess, as well. However, in this game, they are absolutely terrible. They're just really, really bad. There's no other word for it. But they are also not helped by a really, really shoddy script that just doesn't hit any... doesn't tick any boxes for me. It's kind of a combination of two. I was going to say a yin and yang, but that'd mean they're opposites. They're pretty much the exact same. I think it's both down to the voice actors and the company, probably more the company because they're the one that hires the voice actors. However, I just think overall, Quantic Dream, story-wise, whether it's the voice acting, the script, so the way that the story is handed to us, the way things happen, certain segments of the game, it's just altogether really, really poor, and I'm really disappointed in the story because I feel like it had potential. I know you can say that to like everything, but I feel like genuinely this game had proper potential. It just wasn't to be, I guess. Now, the gameplay of this game is absolutely abysmal. I think that you can see this as soon as you get to the prologue, the very first part of the game. You can just see you've got to, like, when you're drying yourself as Ethan in the shower, you've got to shake the controller, and I guess they were trying to be revolutionary or evolutionary, I don't know, but it just comes, it's just really, really annoying. It doesn't fit the game at all. It's really, really bad, and there are certain times in the game, it's not too bad, the vast majority of the controls where you have to like click B, click square. Well, I don't think you ever had to click square actually, it was either B or X, and then sometimes you'd have to move the right joystick. They never use the left joystick besides to like look around and move your character. But there was certain times, I'm going to show gameplay on the screen now, where you had to like tilt the controller, like turn it, and that was so unbelievably difficult and finicky. It is unreal. It actually started to get me annoyed at a lot of points, and it was really, really bad. You would have to play the game to really know what I mean, but the amount of times you would turn your controller, you're like, okay, that doesn't work, and then like you turn it a different way, it doesn't work, and it's just so dumb. Maybe there's a way to get it to work constantly that I've just not figured out. Maybe I'm just dumb, I don't know, but this is my experience with the game. It was so bad. There was one where you have to like slide on a plank of wood. Couldn't do it. And then there was also controls like to change the environment in when you had the headset on, like the glasses on, as the FBI agent. You would have to like, I don't even know what the input was, like up and around, I guess, but I could never get it to activate. It was so I just gave up on it in the end. So there are certain things that I just didn't particularly like about the controls. For the vast majority of the time, the controls weren't too bad, but these poor controls did show up often enough as to the point where I was like, yeah, this is really boring, and well, not even boring, annoying, and it's really, really dumb. But for the most part, it wasn't. Yeah, there was also, I completely forgot to mention this, you have to hold the R2 button to be able to move around your character, and then sometimes, a lot of the time, your character would fight when the camera angle changes, because it's, you know, you can only, like at a time you can only have like 2 different camera angles. You can look behind you, in front of you, or like depending on where you are, like 2 different camera angles, and so it's pretty much a like a stationary perspective. Not necessarily stationary because the camera does move, but it's like a so it's not a fixed camera angle like maybe like Resident Evil of old, but it's a similar sort of thing, and that your character, once the camera angle changes, sometimes they'll just do like a whole 360 circle. It's just really, really bad. So not only are the controls bad, but they feel bad to use within the game. The only times I actually liked the controls was playing basketball early on in the game. It wasn't really early, it was maybe like an hour into the game, as Ethan. Like it hovers over the hoop and you have to like flick up your controller to score a 3-pointer, and I kind of liked that. Literally absolutely pointless for the game, but I don't know, I liked it. If you like quick time events, this game is for you, as it is full of quick time events. Now, most of the stuff in the game isn't quick time events, because that'd mean there's like a time limit to it. Most of it you can take your time, but like almost once a mission there is a quick time event, and like a lot of them. Every single fight's a quick time event, and there are so many. And I want to preface this: there's too many fights in this game. There's too many fights. Chase sequences. It gets to a point in the game where like the last 5 or 6 or 7 chapters in it, just in a row, all have chase sequences or fight sequences or both. Like it becomes to the point where it's like, oh, I've done this like the 5 times now. Like, sure, early on in the game it wasn't too bad, but then once you did it the 3rd or 4th time, you're like, okay, I've seen this before, cool. And it's always the same inputs. It's just annoying. So there's a lot of that. So if you just hate chase sequences that are just quick time events, then this game's not for you, or fight sequences where they're just quick time events, this game's not for you. Also, there's not a lot of big consequence for the quick time events. You have to fail a lot of them to actually fail, like get the character killed, or fail the mission, like get him arrested, or yada yada yada, you know. I was playing a mission where Shelby went full John Wick and killed like 15 people, which was so out of just, that's crap in and of itself. And I could have also had that in the story section, I guess. And the gun in this section sounds abysmal. However, I failed the quick time event like 3 times, mainly not because they're difficult, I just wasn't focusing, because at this point I was just, you know, my brain was rotted, I think, by this game. And I was just, you know, my eyes were rolling in the back of my head at how bad it was. But those quick time events, you only had to click one button, I'm pretty sure, every single time. It's just circle, 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 whatever. You could just spam circle and it would work. But I failed the quick time events 3 times, and nothing happened. The guy just like got shot in the ear, held his hand, was like, ow, that's it. But like nothing died. Like, I'm sure if you fail it enough, maybe if I failed it like like just didn't even hit a button, I'm sure I'd eventually die. But how lenient does the game have to be with quick time events? And then there's also a decision later on in the game where you can jump or not jump from like a tall building. I jumped, that just instantly killed me, so that was okay, I died. But then this John Wick situation, it's impossible to die. It's just so stupid, it doesn't make any sense. But there's a lot of these quick times, and if you don't like quick times, stay away from this game pretty much. I also would like to mention that the quick times in this game were terrible, because this is a review of course. The quick times in this game are terribly used, they're not used very well. I feel like it's very difficult to fail them, and even if you do, like by fail them I don't mean one individual quick time event, I mean the mission or the situation. However, even if you do fail, the consequences usually are decent. However, the quick time events themselves are just bad. I mean, there was one, like I said, with the John Wick situation where you just spammed circle, and then there's nothing, you don't get anything for doing it too early. So you can do it too late, it might pop up like circle, and then if you do it too late, then sure. But you can just spam circle, and if another quick time event, let's say you're spamming circle, and then it says like click the X button, right? Then you don't get punished for clicking the wrong button. You just then have to go and click the X button. Like you don't get punished. Like you only get punished if you don't click a button in time. But as long as you click it in time, it's absolutely fine, right? You can click a button before there's any prompts. You can click the wrong button when there is a prompt. And so if it says click the circle button, you click the square button. It doesn't matter. Like it's so like there's no. It just doesn't. It's just not implemented well. I do not believe there's not as much consequence as there should be. There is also a scene with Ethan in the car right at the end of the game. I mean, I say right at the end, the last like half an hour, 45 minutes of the game, where I just couldn't figure out for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes what to do. He has like this phone, you can pick up the phone, it says pick up the phone, you keep picking up the phone, nothing happens. What you're actually meant to do is on the little sat-nav or whatever next to it, you're meant to, like the little map, you're meant to press A on one of those and then drive to a location, but there's no indication you're meant to press A. My assumption was you had to hover over one of them and then pick up the phone to like see if you could hear anything on the other side to see where he is. That was my assumption. It's so unclear, and there are a few times like this where it's a little bit unclear, but this is the worst of it by far, and it's not too bad, but this is the worst of it by far. Overall, the control scheme in this game is bad. Overall, I would say it's bad. Especially because there's a lot of buttons that are just not used. The square button I don't think is ever used. Is a triangle button even ever used? I think the triangle button's used a few times. The square button just doesn't exist apparently. And then the touchpad I don't think exists in this game either. This game was made for the PS3, so maybe that makes sense, but they could have, like, I don't, does it do, like, yes, no, you know what, no, the game was made for the PS3, so that's a bit harsh. But yeah, the square button just doesn't exist. The D-pad, I never even tried. I don't know if that exists. Instead they could have had the. I would assume the D-pad is probably like a movement control. I literally didn't use it the entire game, so I actually don't know what the D-pad does. I've only just realised I didn't use it because you never needed to. However, maybe the D-pad like could have been reused as like some more QuickTime events. You know, I don't know. Like it's just there's not many buttons for the QuickTime events. The QuickTime events are bad. Certain controls, movement controls of the controller are just bad. I can't imagine how it was on the PS3. If it's this bad on the PS5, I can't imagine. Anyway, overall, Heavy Rain is a game that has so many things that could go well for it in terms of the story, the narrative. I don't know if it was Quantic Dream's idea or if it was someone else outside of the company's idea, but whoever had the idea of the origami killer, and then the origami killer even being someone you play as is a pretty interesting concept. It's not someone else, it's someone you play as. That's sort of an interesting concept. However, the way they reveal it, the whole story up until that, the amount of chase sequences that just become unbelievable. Like, how is Ethan escaping the police in these situations? I have no idea. Like, it does get to the point where it's cartoonishly bad. And that's not theoretical, that is true. Anyway, out of 10 I would give Heavy Rain, I'm going to have to think this off the top of my head because I've not even thought about this, but I'd probably give Heavy Rain a 3 out of 10, I think. It is a very, very bad game, which sucks. I feel like the biggest positive for me with this game genuinely is I love the rain. I go to sleep with rain in my ears. Rain is my favourite weather condition by far. Thus, I liked the Heavy Rain aspect of the game. It rained most of the game, and it's the only game I've played where it rains the vast majority of the time, I think. So I did like that. However, that's just a personal preference of weather conditions and isn't indicative of how good the game is. The game is pretty poor. A 3 out of 10 I think is fair. Yeah, it's a pretty poor game.
Don't forget about this guy.